Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. Today is going to be one of the most important days we're doing the broadcast because we're going to be talking about the actual events that are taking place, the terror threats that are now coming through the border. The FBI is concerned about. But the interesting story to me is the awakening that is happening in the minds of individuals, like you'll hear Joe Rogan talking with quarterback Aaron Rodgers, the discovery and exposure that is taking place in the way in which data is being suppressed from Facebook on Tucker that is not, you can see on Twitter, X is 187 million views on his interview. Less, I think it's like 100,000 on Facebook. What is going on when government gets involved with media? Well, you want to end that collusion very quickly. And by the way, you want to like, share, and subscribe with these broadcasts because we hit that same suppression all the time. But it's because of you that we can stay above the waterline and stay out there. And speaking of above the waterline, the Dow, which is the index for the stock market, just had its most significant drop, like 500 points just happened this week. Its most significant one since, I think, a year ago, March. And if you analyze the market, you're going to see that the globe is in a desperate financial debt situation. A lot of money is in flight, and it's pumping up artificially the stock market. America's stock market is looking good right now, but it's dangerously overvalued. I mean, it's one thing if your house, that you bought for like 100,000, you could sell for 200. When you can sell it for 2 million, the money is monopoly money. So something's happening in the stock market that's very ominous, and it could be a big adjustment coming. But I'm telling people all the time, you don't have to be concerned about the market if you have your money in something that is stable, which is why I'm still saying gold, silver, those types of things are going to be indispensable for commerce and for business and for technology. Go to lancewallnau.com/Birch, get the 21-page special report, and talk to somebody about whether or not gold is for you a logical and a smart move. So many people have been listening to me on this. I myself believe the Bible verse says the silver is mine and the gold is mine because there's a kind of a tradition of history on the store of value has been in gold. The reason why the banks all over the world are trying to maximize gold, Russia and China trying to maximize gold, is because they don't trust the dollar. Maybe you shouldn't trust the dollar also. Put your money into something that's going to hold your value. lancewallnau.com/Birch. Get the report and be forewarned. Now, we're going to go into today's program. I can't wait to share this with you. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show. We're talking about the corruption. And so, Carl, when did we officially authorize wiretapping on American citizens? When was that? That was done?
October 2001 with the Patriot Act.
The Patriot Act, okay. I can remember the people that would be talking about, the hyper sensitivity to surveillance of government intrusion into the citizen's life. And I can remember that we all looked at that because of 9/11 and said, that's justified because there's terrorism. If they had been wiretapping, they could have maybe picked up on these guys talking about how they're going to fly planes into the World Trade Center. So under the fear that we were going to be attacked, this is important you catch this. What government will do is it will exploit fear as a mechanism to increase its control. So after the COVID leak and the lab leak, which was treated as a pandemic from unknown sources, the government acquired this tremendous aphrodisiac of being able to shut you down, distance you, control you. Having tasted that level of compliance in the Western nations, they now know that they can. It's a strange thing, but they know those that want more power and control know that it's possible if you incite the right fear. The World Trade Center produced the right fear for the government to have this expanded capacity. The problem was, what may have been justified in its context at the time, when the threat wasn't there, watch this. the intelligence agencies, the FBI, what we now know, is that they never rescinded their power to do the wiretapping. They just had to change the target. Instead of looking at, for instance, this is a fact. Remember all this spate of like 13 or 14 FBI whistleblowers that were all fired from their jobs because they came out and told congressmen and told Republicans, they said, we have been told to stop watching terrorist activity from foreign sources that are in our nation and to retarget, get this, white nationalist, MAGA extremism, because it was politically expedient that they build a narrative, and then the stupidity and lying of the FBI comes out again, and then the Democrats come out again and say the number one threat in the United States is white extremism and terrorism. And they basically were told to go find these things. Find it, look for it. And so they had to redirect their budgets and their money to go surveil American citizens that were of the Republican or conservative orientation. This is what gets you into the planting agents in Catholic churches to go watch, what's going on with the Planned Parenthood Catholics. That's when you have to realize the danger of giving the Patriot Act now is that when you no longer have terrorists to work with, you make your agencies work to suppress and surveil their political opposition, just like a banana republic. And now it's gone. And then you target and this is why they're after Trump with all these court cases. It's the logical extension of utilizing your agencies to go after your political opponents. But I'm confident that this is actually taken a while, but it's boomeranging. I can remember, I was saying in the last segment, I remember praying and being mocked by, Right Wing Watch or Rolling Stone or the various other, leftist oracles, because I prayed in a podcast based on prayers from Psalms of David, and I think from the book of Esther. It was around April of 2018, I think, in 2019, that I was praying that God would expose the Haman plot that was working against this administration, Trump and his followers, to destroy them, and that there would be an expose of it. And I was mocked because I felt that it was going to come faster. I thought it would come around the time of maybe April, in the fall, basically that commemorates the Feast of Purim, which is when Haman's governmental plot to destroy the Jews was exposed by the fasting and prayers of the Jews that knew that they could never fight against the government if the government was going to authorize their destruction. And I prayed that Brennan would be exposed. I prayed that Comey and Clapper and what the intelligence services had done to collaborate in order to create a scenario that would pull Trump out of office and vilify his movement. I prayed that it would be exposed, and I was mocked because nothing happened. And I thought, well, things don't happen right away. But the Apostle Paul had enemies that when he affected money, this is what it comes down to, power and money. It always does. Trump interrupts the pharmaceutical agenda now that he's got his eyes open. He interrupts the NATO alliance with the industrial complex and the endless wars that are feeding the trillions of dollars that go into the military establishment. And so he interrupts all that because if it's not justified, like he said, well, who needs NATO? Russia's not going to be that big a threat. I can handle Russia. I think we can neutralize North Korea and China too. And they mocked him. They thought, what crazy thinking is this? And Trump's absolutely right. Now you read news reports, the New York Times and the other leftist oracles. Oh, the danger, NATO allies warn, we'll soon be at war with Russia if we don't solidify the NATO alliance. And basically, Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin has convinced a lot of people maybe the guy is being set up to become the boogeyman. Not that he's a choir boy, but I don't know if he's worse than Brennan, Clapper, or Comey conspiring in their own government against their own seated president. My point is this. The Apostle Paul says, there's a certain guy named Alexander, a coppersmith, who made a fortune off of selling idols in Ephesus, I think. And Paul impacted his trade so that they literally brought accusations against Paul, accused him, the Apostle Paul, the Bible, of being a insurrectionist who was destabilizing the city and the government, and that these are troublemakers who need to be locked up and locked underground. And so they went after Paul, and they went after his team, which was merely planting first century churches. And Paul wrote to Timothy in an interesting letter in the 2 Timothy 4:14, for you Bible scholars out there. He said, Alexander the coppersmith did me a great deal of damage. And then he adds this very interesting statement: may the Lord repay him according to his deeds. You also need to beware of him, because he greatly resisted our words, put me in a position where I had to go to court. At my first defense, nobody stood with me. Everyone forsook me. May it not be charged against them. You see, fear got over Paul's friends, just like fear comes on a lot of pastors. Fear comes upon a lot of conservatives. They don't want to wear that MAGA hat. They don't want to be associated with Trump. They're afraid they'll lose their license if they're in psychiatry, or their license if they're a doctor, if they don't subscribe to what the pharmaceutical companies want. They're afraid to speak out in their pulpits for fear that they'll be persecuted or lose people, or lose revenue when they lose people. So you see, Paul says, mercifully, he says, they are weak. They're cowardly, they're weak, but I'm going to cut them a break. They didn't stand with me when I was in court, but may God have mercy on them. They need to get stronger. But Alexander, he says something different. May God repay him for what he's done. And now I believe, my prayer is seeing daylight. May God repay Brennan, Clapper, and Comey. May the equity they've built up that makes them speaker circuit, guests for $25,000 a message, and celebrated, authorities on MSNBC and such. I pray that those that have conspired to do harm now have a reckoning. May they repent of what they've done, or deal with the consequences of their actions. That's my Bible analysis. By the way, some good news. As you know, we had that the House did vote to impeach Mayorkas. But I want to go back to the hypocrisy and the lameness of Biden's response. In the tweet, go to graphic 6 and graphic 7, put them up. I just want to read to you what Biden's comment. History will not look kindly on House Republicans for their baseless impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas. By the way, you know for a fact that Biden didn't write these. So these are the people that are running the United States and writing things for him. Instead of staging political stunts like this, the House Republicans with genuine concerns about the border should want Congress to deliver more border security. Oh, do we really need Congress to do that? Or how about your administration enforce the laws that are already there? Sadly, the same Republicans pushing this impeachment are rejecting bipartisan plans. They love bipartisan because of waffly, weak, rhino, deep state, inter-party Republicans. Bipartisan plans to strengthen border security. Congress needs to act to give my administration the tools needed to address the situation at the border. This will age very poorly because everybody knows Biden doesn't need tools to deal with anything.
He is one. Sorry.
He is a tool, actually. But what he needs to do is he's basically trying to push that big money project through to Ukraine so that the military-industrial complex can keep funding whatever they're doing. You don't hear about that report about the $31 million that was taken, that was tracked, that was illegally used by people getting money over there in the corrupt hierarchy of Zelensky, listed as one of the top 5 most corrupt nations in the world, by the way, in terms of money laundering. So now the American people are having an awakening. This is the good news. We prayed for a great awakening. We didn't get the spiritual one, but we're having a rude awakening, and the rude awakening, I think, precedes a great awakening. And the proof of that is that you're now hearing the Russell Brands, the Tucker Carlsons, the influencers of the independents, and this is what freaks the left out. The voices in Bill Maher, who, until you mention the name Trump, then he goes into a Trump-Tourette syndrome. But apart from that, he actually starts talking about the lunacy on the left. That what they're doing is not, of course, it's like Dennis Prager. He says there's a difference between a liberal and a leftist. I'll give him that. There are probably some sane liberals, but the leftists have taken over the party, and their policies are what you're eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. May God deliver us from their foreign policy implications. We'll be right back with a big update. I want to take a moment to talk about the volatile financial time that we're in. And I want you to empower yourself with knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge, the Bible says. Visit lancewallnau.com/birch and get a free information kit. Consider discussing how to shift your 401k or your retirement account into a tax-sheltered gold and silver account. Why don't you go to lancewallnau.com/birch right now and take action for a secure future. And when I say that it's the Russell Brandts and the Tucker Carlsons and the Joe Rogans and the Bill Maher's, and they're the ones that, and that Jon Stewart's coming out again. He's back. Not crazy about that.
Just for an episode.
No, I think he's a regular now. I think he's got something going on, like on one of the, like Netflix or one of the channels.
On Apple TV.
On Apple
The
TV.
problem with. Yeah.
So
anyway.
He couldn't help himself because it's very, hey, listen, I understand it's tempting, but at least he'll do a little bit. He's bad on the right, but he'll at least swing to the left and hit him when he can.
Did you see the segment that he did on Trump and Biden? Talking about mental efficiency and mental wherewithal and whatnot. It was during a press conference.
Well, and his point was that they're both old, is what his point was, right?
That was one of them. But the main thing beyond just they're both old, this isn't working, is we need to really fundamentally reevaluate the caliber of people that we're putting in this position of authority. Fundamentally.
Well, that's what supposedly the primary process is about. If Biden would have been allowed to debate anybody, you would have found that his cognitive capacity was already compromised. Mm-hmm. But I want you to hear. Now, I remember Joe Rogan because I listened to Joe over the years, various little segments. He's an interesting kind of a guy because he started off with this total skepticism about religion because he grew up in Boston, Catholic church exposed, and then it's all like crazy stuff, believing in God in the sky, talking to people, and so he had a tremendous cynicism. I watched the evolution. It was really the telling moment, which I don't have a clip on for you, is with Jordan Peterson, because he'd sit down and talk to people he respected as intellectuals. I remember one time he goes, "Well, you don't really believe that Bible stuff, do you?" And I remember Peterson looked at him with exasperation, like a professor talking to a freshman that doesn't understand his class. He goes, "It's not that simple, Joe. You can't just make statements like that." And he went down, boom, and he drilled into a classic Jordan Peterson, 7-minute educational session on how it is that the stories that are in the Bible are actually the stories that have shaped civilization, and that the Bible itself is the source code of all of the literary works that have come out since then. And the impact of its stories and there's a reason why these stories from Genesis resonate thousands of years, because they reflect a fundamental truth. And bam, so you see Joe going, okay. And he literally says it. Look, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't understand. That began the evolution of Joe Rogan. But then he had a guy in there who was a evolutionary creationist scientist. I mean, a brilliant guy. And when you're talking to these PhDs, who's a Christian, and he starts discussing the complexities of design and the fact that statistically it's impossible that this could have self-generated, because given the same environment, any other environment, none of this stuff just creates anything. We have thousands of years of observation. Something had to have happened that was designed in there. And so Joe's like, well, what about this? And he's answering the question. I'm watching as we pray the hand of God coming upon what I call trophies of grace. That's what actually was Charles Finney called them, which are leaders in secular society who are overtaken by the hand of God, who actually come out as proponents of faith. I want you to watch this evolution of Joe Rogan here as he talks with quarterback Aaron Rodgers about his reflections now on the necessity of morality and religion. Watch this.
Well, unfortunately, the problem with living in a secular society and living in a society that has a lot of people that are atheists, that have no belief system at all, is you find a belief system. And that's a lot of these people that call themselves atheists, or they've subscribed to the religion of woke. Their God is equity and inclusiveness. Their God is this ideology that they think that you have to subscribe to. And that's why it's spooky, because human beings seem to have a very strong desire for some sort of order and form and some sort of pattern that they can follow that seems to be the right way to go. And they can be led by cults, they can be led by groups of people, they can be led by intolerant governments and evil armies and corrupt politicians. They can be led. But I think as time rolls on, people are going to understand the need to have some sort of divine structure to things, some sort of belief in the sanctity of love and of truth. And a lot of that comes from religion. A lot of people's moral compass and the guidelines that they've used to follow to live a just and righteous life has come from religion. And unfortunately, a lot of very intelligent people, they dismiss all of the positive aspects of religion because they think that the stories are mere superstitious fairy tales, that they have no place in this modern world, and we're inherently good and your ethics are based on your own moral compass and we all have one. And that's not necessarily true, because you see the way people behave in war. They don't have any moral compass. They're just murderers and killers, and we've asked people in service of our country to go to these places and behave like murderers and killers and then reintegrate into society, right back into society, and be a good person again. And they don't know how to do it, and they go crazy. And there's a lot of them who come back and they're down is up and up is down. They don't know what.
And we don't help them out.
We don't help them out. And the suicide rate, suicide is is it the number one killer of veterans?
Pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, but
it's up world we live in. We need Jesus. I think, for real. Like, if he came back now, it'd be great. Like, Jesus, if you're thinking about coming back
right now,
now's a good time.
Yeah, pretty soon. Yeah,
now's a good time.
We need Jesus. Just warms the cockles of my heart to hear Joe Rogan say we need Jesus. But what he's saying, listen, there's a reason why he was considered part of the intellectual dark web, along with Weinstein, Eric and Brett, and Peterson. Why Joe Rogan? Well, because he has kind of an intuitive genius about him, which is why he's you can listen to him. He approaches subjects with curiosity. He's not afraid to ask really good, congruent questions as he's evolving and listening to whether this is BS or whether this is accurate. And you could see, literally, if you followed him and listened to him over the years, you're watching the evolution of Jordan Peterson. The evolution of
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. And I credit Peterson as being the guy that kind of started the jolt on that. But he's making an interesting statement. He's in his analysis, which you're not going to hear in most pulpits, but it's true. He's saying that human beings are inherently built with a God-shaped void that they fill with some form of faith. And if their faith isn't in a transcendent God who is above and outside of man, judging man who you're ultimately accountable to, then man becomes his own God. And your own moral compass becomes your moral compass. The whole Marxist delusion, which really tells you Marxism, which is the essence of what communism, Marxism, equity is all about. The common theme there is that man can create utopia if man can be in charge, that the right people can have total authority. We can create heaven on earth, and we can redisperse things so that everybody is taken care of. This is the World Economic Forum elites. This is what Klaus Schwab believes. This is what the elites believe. And this is the seduction of man being God could create. If we only had total power, we could create an equitable system. The problem with that is that human beings, being the way they are too weak to be able to have total power. And so if you don't have those checks and balances, then what happens is human beings put themselves in a position where they have more power than they should have, and that they can impose their own agenda on other people, and it makes for a life of misery. And that's the story of history, wherever you have that kind of structure. Faith actually puts you in an interesting position where, let's face it, everybody, when they're playing a game or when they're tempted to make money selling drugs that haven't been tested, and yeah, there might be some negative effects, but listen, we can make a fortune doing this. In fact, we need to come up with a new virus so that we can sell more of these drugs. You see, the seduction of money or of power is such that it causes you to compromise your moral compass. And that's what sin is. Sin really is the compromising of the moral compass that human nature does all the time. The fact of the matter is, if you really believe God existed, here's the catch. The other person might not know you're conning them, but God knows you're conning them. And if you really have a belief in a transcendent God that you're ultimately accountable to, it puts what's called the fear of God on you so that it doesn't matter whether other people catch you in the lie or know that you're conning them. God knows. And it's that awareness that God's watching you that is the essence of the Hebraic Judeo faith that produces a kind of a reverence towards accountability and judgment. And that's what's missing in a lot of these cases. I want to transition now into, well, we got 1:52 seconds. Oh, that's all we got left. This is the end of the program. I can't believe it. Can you believe it? Let's go real quick, real fast to graphic 20. The Wall Street Journal, Facebook demoted the video of Tucker Carlson by 50% at the demand of the Biden White House. Do you think Joe Biden is interfering with your ability to see information? Look at graphic 21. Numbers from February 11th. Tucker's interview with Putin had 12 million views on YouTube, which is, I think, suppressed. 187.6 million on X. Thank God for Elon Musk. Another trophy of grace coming every day closer. Facebook has 0.1 million. What is that? 1 million? Is that
100,000?
Huh?
100,000.
It's 100,000, which tells you. It's kind of like I just did. You guys got to go to my Facebook page. I never promote my own page, but it's hilarious. Go there. I've got some stuff with Charlie Kirk I did. And for some reason, Facebook has put the subtitles. You know, we have a translation on the bottom. Just it repeats. I have an app that gives you in case you're driving or looking, not driving, but in case you're in a class and you're looking, you don't want other people to hear what's on the audio, you can read it. It's all in Spanish. And they're probably going to change it to Swahili after I fix it. And it's suppressed so that nobody can see it. But I did an interview with Charlie Kirk calling out leaders that are working against conservative Christians, leaders that are telling pastors to stay out of politics. And we get into it. We call them by name. We mention some people that it'd be shocking to know who they are. But the fact is, it's suppression. And what we need to know is, and I think it's like, what was it, Vivek and some other people that are saying that the reality is this is the government and the tech industry creating a dangerous alliance, and you know that. Want to see you again on our next broadcast. God bless you.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your MyPillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com.
Go to mypillow.com and use promo code Lance to save big on all of Mike's best products. That's promo code Lance. Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.